Hello and welcome to It's Your Business with Mario Toneguzzi on Megapix Media. Joining me today is Iain Reeve, who is the Conference Board of Canada's Associate Director of Immigration Research. Thanks for joining us today, Iain.
Thanks for having me. Happy to chat.
Well, recently the federal government announced some strategy and initiatives going forward when it comes to immigration in Canada. From what they announced, Iain, what were the key plans in the future when it comes to immigration for Canada?
Yeah, I think what we've heard from the government really since COVID happened was that in spite of the potential for a big economic downturn, that the government was really devoted to immigration as a key driver of our economic growth in the future, but also just our economic recovery in the immediate post-COVID period, which we'll hopefully be moving into in the not so distant future. And I think that the Levels plan kind of bore that out. You know, the government's been steadily increasing immigrant intake by about 10,000 people per year since they came into government. The new plan on the surface seems like a huge amount of growth, but it's actually still a growth of about 10,000 people per year. But with each of the 3 years of the Levels plan, they've added an additional 50,000. And the reason for that is because we're going to be short about 150,000 people over what the plan was for 2020. So the net result is that at the end of the 3-year plan, we should actually be right about back to where we would have been if COVID hadn't happened in the first place. So just to summarize, it seems like a big growth in the next few years, but really just kind of getting back on track for what the government was aiming for before the pandemic.
Okay, then, and where are we at in terms of immigration now? Obviously, at the beginning of COVID, borders were shut, et cetera. In terms of a typical year for immigration, are we getting back on track now as opposed to, say, 4 or 5 months ago?
So I think things have improved. There are two main things that have been slowing down immigrant intake into the country, both related to COVID and public health restrictions. So the first one is just travel restrictions. So just whether or not people can get into the country in the first place because there's travel restrictions to get into Canada, or they can't leave their own country easily. And then the second thing was that COVID impacted the operations of IRCC and then a lot of the supporting organizations that also helped make immigration happen in Canada. They had to work from home. There were mail restrictions, or document restrictions. Just nothing was moving as well place to place as it normally would be. So I think on that last piece, operations have gotten back up to pretty close to good levels. There's still some limitations. IRCC still isn't quite working at 100%, but things have improved significantly. That said, the travel restrictions are still pretty strict. So I think the best estimates at the moment are that we're probably going to hit about 200,000 people arriving in Canada as permanent residents for 2020, which is a little over half, maybe 60% of what the actual goal would have been. And the reason they've actually even been able to hit that number is because they focused a lot on people that were already in Canada but were applying to become permanent residents. So we're talking about temporary foreign workers, international students, that kind of thing. So at the end of the day, we should be about 140, 150,000 people short of what we were aiming for. And again, I think that's why the government has had these ambitious growth targets over the next 3 years to kind of make up that ground.
Okay. When you look at immigration itself, obviously it's very, it's always been a controversial subject in many ways, but can you talk a little bit about, Iain, about the impact that immigration has on the country, beyond culturally and all that, but from a pure numbers sense in terms of the economics of it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I guess the big number that we tend to focus on is the fact that, as we all know, Canada has a birth rate that is below what's the necessary number in order for our population to grow. And what that means, at least in workforce terms, is in the next 5 to 10 years, we would actually start to hit negative labor market growth, if not for immigration. So we would have fewer and fewer workers in the workforce, which would, of course, make it very challenging for businesses to grow, to increase their profits, et cetera. So for a long time, immigration has been really important for Canada in terms of getting the skills we need into the country and providing businesses with labor that they need in order to grow, especially high-skilled labor. But more and more as we move into the future, that's just going to be absolutely essential. Beyond that, immigrants also do bring, spending and investment. Our sort of service and retail industries have been experiencing growth year over year for a really long time. And a lot of that is driven by population growth, which comes from immigrants. Immigrants, like everybody else, spend money on basic services, on groceries, on consumer goods, on resources and cars and all that stuff. So they provide a lot of additional business for consumer services and products. And then lastly, immigrants start businesses and they employ a lot of Canadians, and immigrants start businesses at a higher rate than people born in Canada. And there's plenty of success stories all across the country of immigrants who've started businesses that have scaled and have led to generation of tons of opportunities for Canadians. So skills, investment, starting of businesses, and then just spending. These are all really important cornerstones of why immigration is so important to Canada's economy.
Okay, super. Now, when you look across the country, are there any pockets, areas in Canada that are likely to see, to capture more of this immigration wave, so to speak?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So, I mean, traditionally, immigrants have tended to go to the bigger cities in Canada. So, Toronto, Vancouver, Calgary, Montreal have been the main places that immigrants tend to go, either there or sort of the suburban areas around those cities.
Yeah.
The IRCC has made it a really big priority to try to encourage more immigrants to go to other communities, smaller communities, even rural communities that traditionally haven't seen very many immigrants go there. And the reason that that's important is both because sometimes the immigrants' own interests aren't necessarily served by going to the big cities. They might enjoy a different kind of lifestyle, depending on what kind of sector they want to work in or what their skills are. They actually may find a better fit for their career path outside of one of the big cities. Toronto, Calgary, Vancouver aren't always the best place for everybody, depending on what your sort of career choice and skills are. But also, it's important for these communities. Many smaller communities are facing declining populations, lower birth rates, people moving away. And for businesses there that want to grow, they face big challenges in terms of securing the skilled labor that they need to be successful. Immigrants are a potential answer to that. And so we're seeing more and more communities across the country really buying in on the idea of trying to attract more immigrants. Of course, immigrants, like anybody, once they're here, they can move wherever they want. They might start somewhere, then move somewhere else. So the key thing for these communities is to just offer people really good economic opportunities, to offer them a community that speaks to their values and lets them do the things that they enjoy in their life, and just to make sure that the communities are welcoming, that they bring immigrants in and they treat them like members of their community. If smaller places can be successful in these things, I think we'll see more and more immigrants go and stay in smaller communities.
Okay, super then. Well, thanks very much, Iain, for your time on this.
Yeah, really happy to chat anytime.
Okay, great. That was Iain Reeve, who is the Conference Board of Canada's Associate Director of Immigration Research. This has been It's Your Business with Mario Toneguzzi on Megapix Media. Thanks for joining us today.